following is a GNC podcast production. Welcome to Geek Addicts, a pop culture podcast.
Hello and welcome to Geek Addicts, the pop culture podcast where we talk about lots of stuff. My name is Matt. With me, my co-host, Demon Prince, Bill Barber. How you doing, Bill?
Demon Prince, that's a new one. I love how the car showed up like right when we started. I'm like, that's great. He's right on time.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, they might be a little bit more noticeable than usual today because it was hot as balls when I got up here today, and I had to open the windows because it's just bad.
I can imagine. Yeah, it's been not the best lately, weather-wise.
Yeah, it was weird today because it was like, I don't know, it kept feeling like we were gonna get rain, but like it was still nice out. And then like the whole day went by. We were supposed to get rain yesterday, which we never got. But then today, like it was totally fine all day, and then I clock out and I walk out the door and it is like full on like torrential downpour. And that happens for like 5-10 minutes, and then it just clears up, and now it's sunny again.
You guys got that from us because it was like raining here yesterday, and we must have had your rain yesterday because then it probably traveled up north, and then there it was.
Makes sense. That makes sense. You got all our snow last year too, so
yay.
Every time we heard there was going to be snow, it was like, oh, there's no snow. And then you'd be on the Discord being like, hey, guess what I'm doing? Shoveling.
Yeah. Or just watching trees fall.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we still got trees falling, which, you know, I've kind of had my fill of at this point, but we keep getting them.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't even cut them down like ahead of time because they're not technically on our property.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, it's really annoying, especially when we're down to one shed now, and it's the wood shed. So it's like we had like 4 sheds in our yard, and fucking one of them just collapsed because we were too busy trying to fix the house after that tree, and then another tree fell in the other shed. So, I mean, our yard looks much more spacious than it did before. I mean, I'll give it that much.
Yeah. No, there's not as many trees down here, so we don't really get them going down as much, but
makes sense.
Still sucks.
Yeah. So yeah, how have you been this week, Bill? What have you been up to?
I've been working and trying to deal with my bad tooth because I've mentioned it on the other shows, but I have a wisdom tooth that needs to come out, and it's rearing its ugly head right now.
Understandable. Yeah, I took a break from Persona this week. Not necessarily because I needed one, but because I found my DS and I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna play some Yu Yu Hakusho. So I'm playing that this week. You know, because I've had that game going since we did our Yu Yu Hakusho episode. I started that game, and I'm close to the end now. When I found my DS, I was like, all right, I'm just gonna buckle down and play that. And that's a good game too, because you can just jump in at any point, just play a couple levels, then put it back down. It's not like super involved. So
nice. Now I bought another.
Go ahead.
I bought another OG Xbox today.
Another one?
Well, my original one is starting to die. It's had a rough life, so
that's fair.
I bought an upgrade. I've got to open it up and take out that one bad capacitor though that all of them have. So I'm waiting for a Torx set of screw bits to come in.
I gotcha. Yeah, actually, the day after our last recording for the South Park episode we did, it was just on my brain, so I ended up my friend Matt, who you know, he came over and we were hanging out and stuff, and we ended up watching a bunch of those newer South Park episodes you were talking about, and then I played like 4 hours of Fractured Butthole.
Fractured Butthole's great.
I was enjoying it. I mean, once I got like back into it and started like kind of playing around with the combat system and everything. Like, I mean, I still think I like Stick of Truth more personally, but I think that's just an aesthetic thing for me.
I like the story and world more in Fractured Butthole more than anything.
That's fair. That's fair.
I'm also not a huge Lord of the Rings fan, so
True. Although I feel like that was because the Stick of Truth is kind of based off of like the Black Friday trilogy episodes, right?
yeah. Although that theme first appeared in their Lord of the Rings episode.
Yeah. So I mean, I always kind of got the feeling that they were kind of leaning more Game of Thrones than Lord of the Rings, but I mean, it's not the same, but it's all like the same kind of thing. So I imagine that for you it makes a little difference.
Yeah, it's a setting that just doesn't do anything for me personally.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Other than that, I've done like home improvement projects all day. Like I've been building garage equipment and stuff because I finally got around to redoing my garage. It was like the one room in the house that I hadn't touched yet.
There you go.
Then I built another bookshelf for my manga, so it's expanding again.
I need more bookshelves desperately. It's just hard because like I mean we live in our uncle's house, or my uncle's house rather. So like I try not to impose too much about like our, like setups and stuff. Like I use the pre-existing bookshelf, and like there was one point where I bought a bookshelf and I like kind of found a place for it, but it's just hard trying to like organize everything into like proper places so that it doesn't look cluttered. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a little bit difficult because my uncle already has like the vast majority of closets occupied, so like a lot of our storage options are limited.
Yeah. Understandable.
So, yeah, well.
Yeah. So we're kind of revisiting an old topic again for this episode.
Mm-hmm.
We're going back into the world of SandLand because there's a second arc that came out for the anime, which just finished recently. And
Yes.
boy, oh boy, is there things to say about this second arc.
Yeah. I mean, like just right at the top, all things told, I think it's a solid story. I don't have any really problems with the story itself. And I like the way it ends too.
Yeah, the overall arc itself to me was fine. There's just a few specific things about it that kind of irked me a little when watching it.
Mm-hmm.
One major specific thing slash character. If you get my drift.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I gotcha.
So, I guess for people who don't know, the second arc is known as the Fallen Angel arc, and it is completely original. Like, wasn't part of the original manga source, and was essentially created specifically for this anime adaptation. Did Toriyama write it by any chance, or was he
That's
involved at
my
all?
understanding. My understanding was that he wrote this second arc.
Okay. Because my big question I had was like one of my biggest issues right off the bat is like tonally, this arc feels nothing like the first one.
Well, I mean, you also got to figure there's like a solid 25-year separation between the
True.
original manga and this second arc. So I mean, that's a long time. I mean, he
True.
literally wrote this like at the end of his life, which is,
Fair. Yeah, it was kind of weird especially if you went from like the first one right into the second one. Like
Mhm.
both are pretty fine on their own, but like the first part we remember had like that really strong message like that Toriyama was trying to tell at the time.
Yeah.
This one is more your generic shonen kind of story,
Mhm.
which isn't bad per se. It's just a little jarring, I'd say.
I get that. Which is why like I don't know. As a series, it's fine. 13 episodes total for the whole series. Um, I kind of feel like it would have worked better if they had just stuck to the movie format. Like how like
Yeah,
in Japan they got like just the SandLand movie for the first arc, and like if they had just made a second movie and just had them be movies, I think it would have been fine.
maybe. Yeah, it was a weird. It's just such a weird shift, and there's only
Hmm.
so many minor things that connect the two together. Like, if it wasn't for like a few plot threads, you could honestly these could be two separate shows.
Yeah, it's true. I mean,
But
ultimately, it kind of like wraps up by like um I don't know. I feel like it kind of comes full circle with the way it ends, but we'll talk about
yeah,
that later on.
that's like the one plot thread that I really liked.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, we should probably jump into it a bit. Do you want to start off or?
Yeah, I was thinking maybe we start off kind of talking about the new characters. Um, the first
I
one I
could work
definitely
with
want
that.
to bring up is like probably the most important one, and that's Anne. Um,
Android 18 with dreadlocks. Yes.
yeah, pretty much.
Um,
I don't know. It's kind of like she's like a weird conglomeration of like a bunch of other Toriyama female characters, and like honestly, like for me personally, as I was watching it again, like I feel like it's kind of like the best parts of all of his female characters put into one character.
yeah, to in a sense, because Toriyama famously can only draw like two faces. So,
Well, I meant like personality wise.
well, yeah, personality wise, Anne is definitely more refined than a lot of characters.
And she
Um,
definitely has a much more distinct design than a lot of other characters.
yeah, I've never has he done dreadlocks on a female before, or is this a first for him?
Um, it recently in Super, the Granola arc, there was a female alien that had dreadlocks.
Okay. Um, okay, that's fair. Yeah, that's a new design element for him. I also like how like you can tell that like the main cast was designed in like 2000, like early 2000s, and then this
Hmm.
cast is so much different. Like Toriyama's design choices are just so have shifted so much over the years. It's kind of interesting to look at the two.
For sure. Um, but yeah, I like Anne as a character and like the way her character goes. Like in a lot of ways, like when I was watching her, I had like this kind of realization where I feel like Anne is like Bulma as she should have been. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I like Bulma. Bulma's great. But like I feel like Anne has like the attitude of Bulma, but she's not like grating, you know what I mean? The way Bulma can be sometimes. She's got the mechanical aspect of it, but she's also doing shit. Like, she's actually like she's not just fixing things or just building things. She's using her mechanical skills and actually getting involved in battles and fights and like
Well,
high stakes and stuff like that.
the other thing with Anne too is she actually has like noble goals, unlike Bulma, who most of the time her goals are not the most noble.
Yeah, exactly. Like almost every time that Bulma was going for the Dragon Balls, it was for something superficial,
To de-age herself a couple of years, basically.
for real. But like,
Um,
overall, I feel like Anne is a very welcome into the main cast for me personally.
yeah, it was nice to have a solid female member of the party because this show was like just straight up sausage fest the show before.
It like literally like they're the only female in the original manga is that picture of Rao's dead wife. That's the only
Yeah.
female in the whole story.
Well, that's the funniest part is to me is that the opening, like the opening for the show has Anne in it from episode one, and I'm like, who's that? And I'm like, she doesn't appear at all, and it's like, oh, this is who that is.
Hmm. Which, by the way, I know we said it in the last episode, but like, God, that opening song is such a banger.
I'm a little disappointed Rao never plays guitar. He only does it in
I
the
know,
intro.
right? Like you see him in the intro playing the acoustic, and it's like, oh man, like he looks like he'd play acoustic. Like
Why do they highlight that in the trailer but never actually show it in the show?
does it so dramatically too, with like the night sky above him and everything. Like I don't know. I could definitely see him playing acoustic, playing some like blues or something.
Yeah. But going back to characters and overall, definitely a welcome introduction. Now we should move to the. Should we talk about him now, just to get it over with?
Might as well. He's kind of like the other major one.
All right. So the main antagonist of this arc, I guess you could say, is a angel known as Munio, and he leaves his impression right from the start. I'm just gonna say it now. I fucking could not stand him the entire show.
Yeah, he's kind of like one of those. It's a trope at this point, like and I mean, I kind of like the contrast where you have Beelzebub, the Fiend Prince, who is, he's the hero of the story, and then you have the supposed angelic hero who's actually the villain, and it's just
Yeah,
going for power. So I mean, I kind of like that, like I mean, Toriyama loves to do that, like reverse of expectation kind of thing. That's why whenever he introduces two characters together, the small one is always the stronger one. Like that's just the kind of thing he likes to do.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, he's definitely a very annoying character.
I said it. We were talking over text yesterday. I think I said it best. He is like an amalgamation of like all of the worst traits of Toriyama characters just put into one.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's just power hungry, really. And although I will say, I love when you find out what happened to his wings. Like that was just hilarious to me.
That scene was great. The only problem is we'll get to it later, but the scene that follows after that pissed me off so much. But
Yeah,
yeah, Munio is the worst character of this arc, I guess we could say.
he's one of those like my shit don't stink and everyone is below me kind of characters. And yeah, it gets old real fast.
So I wanted him to die the entire running of this arc until the end where we found out what actually happens to him, which I thought was a much better punishment. But
Oh, for sure, for sure.
death was too good for him, honestly.
Mhm.
Um, yeah,
I'd say
not a fan.
the other um another character that I think is definitely worth mentioning is I forget what his rank actually is, but Bread.
Command Commander Bread.
Yeah. He was
His
an
name is
interesting character.
his name is Bread.
Hmm. He was an interesting character, especially as a villain, because like you kind of get where he's coming from. He's not like Zayu. Like Zayu was just straight up shitbag. But Bread actually had like uh an understandable motivation, even though like he definitely went a little far with it. And obviously, like I think the Angel Kid definitely pushed him in the wrong direction. Um, but I feel like at the end of the day, he was trying to do what he thought was right.
He was an extremely misguided character.
Yeah, like he had his people's like best interest in mind, but he was going about it in completely the wrong way, and
Well,
he
because
realized it by the end. But
yeah, like because when he first appears, you think he's going to be the main antagonist of this arc, but then you quickly find out he's more of a cog in the machine, as you could say.
he's kind of like not to the same degree, but he's more like the SandLand King to Zayu kind of thing, like as if like the angel was Zayu. And
I in a I guess in a sense, although he definitely does a lot more than the Sandland King does.
oh, for sure. I mean, he's definitely a better character, and he's a lot more involved. But when you look at like the basic, like he was just kind of a tool to be used. Like that's the way I kind of look at it.
Yeah. um, and then the only other characters that are introduced are they're a bit spoilery. I mean, obviously we're spoiling everything, but there's King Jam and Queen Lilith,
Hmm.
who are the royalty of the Forest Land.
Hmm. Which real
Uh,
original name there.
yeah. Well, I mean, Sandland, Forest Land. It's kind of like
It's
Naruto, the
classic
land of
Toriyama, but
even in Naruto, like the land of fire, the land of water, stuff like that.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I by the way, I know it's like super off topic, but like I think it's kind of ironic that the Land of Fire is just nothing but forest.
Yes.
A little weird, but all right. Anyways, but yeah, Jam and Lilith, which are important to the story, but they don't have a whole lot of screen time.
Yeah. I mean, the king literally, you don't see his face until like later on because his first appearance, he's got a bag over his head. Um, yeah, and you don't even find out, you don't even see the queen until much later.
Yeah. So yeah, the story basically starts out like um Rao is going to like bring some supplies to the Peachy people, so he just picks up Beelzebub and Thief, and they're like, "All right, let's go off, and we're gonna go on a drive and hang out and stuff." Um, and while they're there, they bump into Anne, who was fleeing from a bunch of drones.
Yeah.
And she like wipes out. She's injured. And the drones pick out of her bag. It was like a vial of aquanium.
Yep. Because they had to bring that MacGuffin back.
Of course. So yeah, they take her in. They help her out. They pretty much agree to go back to her land with her to help out with her whole revolution that she's trying to revolt, whatever the hell.
Yeah.
Which I really liked when they first got to Forest Land and Beelzebub walks in, he's like, "This place sucks," and then
Yeah.
but then he starts, like fucking around, he's swinging on vines, he's playing in waterfalls and shit. And it's like, yeah, he definitely seems like it sucks, doesn't it?
I mean, he is a child at heart.
True.
I
We didn't even
found
mention the Beelzebub and the angel guy bump into each other before that.
Yeah, and he leaves such a great impression right off the bat.
Yeah, right. I love how he's just like, "Oh, I'm gonna summon this lightning." It's this tiny little zap, but it like ruins his game console, so he gets super pissed.
Yeah, yeah, that happened. That's about all you can really say.
Super
I
funny.
knew from the first appearance, I was like, oh, this character's gonna be one of those, isn't it?
For sure.
Um, I found it interesting how to the back like Rao was during this arc. Like he's there and he's important, but he's also like not the main focus anymore.
Yeah, well, I mean that makes sense because his story is kind of like told already. Like this arc is definitely like centered around Anne and her quest. Like she is definitely like the main driving force.
Yeah, honestly, like even Beelzebub was kind of like somewhat pushed to the back at the start. He gets more screen time as it goes on, but
yeah. So they get to the forest and Beelzebub goes to take a leak, and he gets shot in the back of the head by people from like the Revolutionary Army or whatever.
yeah,
And they meet up and like, "Oh no, we're cool, don't worry." And they find out that they're gonna execute the King Jam. So they go to try and stop that. And then when Beelzebub goes to jump up and do it, he's attacked by the angel guy. And this is when you kind of find out that, oh, like he was just kind of in a bad area when they encountered each other the first time. Like he's actually kind of formidable here.
yeah.
Especially since he's a total coward and uses other people as shields.
Oh yeah, that's another reason I can't stand that damn character.
Mm-hmm.
Everything about him is just. Spoiler warning: Bill hates Mute Munio.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, I mean that fight is pretty good. I do like the whole everything that kind of happens in this whole sequence coming up here.
Yeah, like with the whole like build up to the reveal with Anne and everything.
Yeah, it's pretty shocking, but also not super surprising, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. I'm also happy that we saw the return of Thief's thieving outfit.
Oh, Santa suit.
Yeah, a Santa suit. It's got to have the Santa suit.
It's at the point where it's so absurd. I just kind of love it.
Mm-hmm. It's wonderful. So yeah, I think while they were going to rescue the king, Rao and Thief were breaking into like the compound to try and steal the Aquanium back.
Yes, because that's where we get introduced. That's where we really get introduced to like Commander Bread.
Mm-hmm. And that's when you actually find out that he's a cyborg.
Yeah, that reveal was pretty interesting. It definitely gave him a pretty unique character design, especially for how weird this world is.
Yeah, it's definitely better than Zayu's cyborg design.
Well, true. His is much more effective, I'd say.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, like the angel and Beelzebub have their little fight, and Beelzebub actually loses because the angel kid just sucks and was cheating the whole time.
True. And Bial's wasn't really taking it serious from the start either, which put him behind a bit.
And he's also at a disadvantage too because it's not the desert, and they have all the trees and the clouds and everything. He can't absorb the power of the night the way he could before. So, yes. Like while he has some of that, he doesn't have as much as he would in his home turf. So, I did like that kind of that became a story aspect. Like I didn't think that really when we were going into it, but once it was like stated, it was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Like being in this particular area would be more difficult for him to absorb that power. So I thought that was an interesting way to go about that.
Yeah.
So this is the part where it's revealed that Anne is actually part demon.
Yeah, which to me was kind of like one of those reveals where it was kind of like, oh, that's interesting. But then you're like, I also wasn't super shocked because like she seemed a little bit too like adept at times. Like she didn't seem human like the rest of them.
True, but like she didn't seem like overly like supernatural in any way. Like it's not like she wasn't like super strong. She wasn't like, I mean, yeah, she did mention like, yeah, I've always been a little bit more athletic than other people, but like it's not to such a degree that she stood out that much, you know? So like I wouldn't have guessed that going in. But it was a fun reveal. But the weird thing is when she does their little like, she has that reveal moment and you see her eyes go red and like she has the little telepathic thing that she sends out. That's like the only like bit of her demonic power that we see in the whole thing.
Yeah, it never gets brought up again. Her eyes don't even go red ever again.
Oh. We good?
Yeah, I'm good on this one. You there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, that was weird.
Yeah, a little glitch in the matrix there.
But yeah, so like and like demon reveal happens, but she doesn't actually in reality it's mostly a red herring because it really doesn't amount to much going forward.
It really doesn't. And they really like kind of tease it too, because later on, you know, when Beelzebub is trying to absorb the power of the night, he invites Anne to join him and, you know, try it out and stuff. But and like when the reveal happens, you think, oh, she's gonna do some demon superpower stuff later. And no, it never happens. She sticks to her, you know, mechanical thing. And I think that's actually kind of cool.
Well, I mean, she's really never used it in her life to begin with, so it's like, why would she like use it now? She doesn't have to rely on it.
That's fair, but I mean, it's Toriyama. He's always kind of toyed around with that. I mean, look at Gohan. You know, the whole concept of alien mixed with human makes superpower hybrid. You know, it's not something that he's been averse to doing before. So
true.
It definitely was within the realm of possibility once that story beat was introduced. But I was kind of surprised and a little impressed that he didn't do anything with that.
Yeah. If anything, another complaint I have for this is it feels a little rushed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because like immediately then we start getting like backstory dumps like going forward.
Yeah, because we get the whole backstory of what when the coup d'etat happened, and then immediately after that we get the Angels backstory. Like
Yeah.
literally like scene to scene, like there's no in between at all. Which I thought was kind
The,
of odd.
the coup d'etat one was interesting to me because it was like it happens and then like how so we get introduced finally to Lilith, who we is obviously revealed to be a demon. And
And Beelzebub's sister.
yeah, yeah, that reveal. I'll bring up something that I observed a little bit on that later. But so like there's like once they like try to like the coup's going on and they get to her and her like little advisor there. Um, that scene was like interesting because like she goes like full power and really shows just how pathetic Munio really is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then of course they have to introduce us to the concept of the urns, where he has these urns that can just capture demons like without fail, apparently.
Toriyama loves sealing demons in jars. He's done it so
Yeah.
many times.
To me, that annoyed me though, because it's like it's she sees the thing fly off in the distance and then just ignores it and then just gets fucking surprise attacked. I was like, really?
Yeah.
Which that isn't even the worst example of this, but we'll get to that later. Um
I do want to call attention to because I noticed this past time when I was watching it, when Lilith goes like demon form, is it just me? Or is she just straight up wearing a Pride Trooper uniform?
yeah, it kind of looked like that.
It looked like just like it. Like it was like a tiny little bit of difference. Like I think like the black pattern had a little bit more of like a star situation going on over here, but like for the most part, it looked exactly like she looked like she would have been right at home in Universe 10 in Dragon Ball Super.
Yeah, her design looked incredibly familiar. Like I'm gonna have to look around and see if I can find if there's another character Toriyama's drawn that looks like that, because it wouldn't surprise
Um,
me.
I mean, obviously the general overall designs are pretty different, but she reminded me of Toa from Heroes and Xenoverse and stuff,
Mhm.
which would make sense because Lucifer is just straight up Deborah, and Deborah and Toa
Yeah,
are brother and sister in Dragon Ball. So it would make sense for him to kind of. I mean, obviously she has her own distinct look, but a lot about her reminded me of Toa.
yeah. That's another critique I had with this arc was the scene where BL's like realizes that they're related is like he just like is like, oh, I happen to have a sister that I've never mentioned before at all, and I'm just gonna bring it up
Hmm.
now. I was like,
Yeah, I haven't seen her in like centuries, but whatever.
I mean, I get the fact that the first arc was written like years ago, but it's just like, damn, they just abruptly pulled that one out of nowhere.
Well, I mean, again, classic Toriyama. You know, it's not the first time he's pulled a random sibling out of nowhere after decades.
I wonder because of how the release schedule came out for these episodes. I wonder how many like because there's that scene in like earlier episodes of Anne and BL's just like chatting it up and stuff like before the reveal. I wonder
Mhm.
how many shippers didn't look too deep into it and started writing creepy fanfics.
It wouldn't surprise me.
And then the reveal happened, and it was like, oh no.
Yeah, well, to be fair, a lot of those kinds.
I mean, it wouldn't
I'm not gonna.
stop them,
I'm not
but
gonna. I'm not gonna paint. I was gonna say I'm not gonna paint with a broad brush, but let's be honest. Like, it doesn't deter a lot of people.
no. But I was like, imagine the people who legitimately didn't think that, and then it's like, surprise, they're siblings, and it's like, are related, and it's like, what?
Yeah. Oh, well.
Uh, that did make me laugh though, and I was like, oh, that's an interesting relation, like a
Mhm.
revelation there.
It's just like, oh, I'm your uncle. Okay.
Yeah,
Um.
and then we get the angel backstory, which is one of the most satisfying scenes in the entire show.
Yeah, for sure. Just because
He
you see
just
him get his fucking wings clipped.
yeah, he just fucking like barges into fucking Lucifer's like little den, and Lucifer. I love
Mhm.
Lucifer because he just legit doesn't give a shit about anything.
I love that he's just like he just shushes him and turns back to his TV.
Yeah, and then Munio, being the douche he is, breaks his TV, and then his response is just to literally rip his wings off.
Yep. And I love that he's like so pissed about it, and he's like, "That was a 36-inch TV you just broke." It's just like,
He's
it's
like,
funny to us because like, how long has it been since that was like a big deal? Like,
I know.
I mean, maybe when the original Sandland manga came out, that was a big deal, and it was a tube TV too.
Yeah. Well, also the fact that it's hard to come by stuff in Sandland at that. So that was pre water coming back. I'm assuming. So I'm assuming it
Yeah,
was
that would have been before the coup, which was 10 years previous. So yeah, it would have been like right like in the middle of that whole drought.
Yeah, so it's like I imagine things were hard to come by. So I guess his whole comment about how hard it was to find that thing makes a lot of sense.
For sure. I just
And then
thought it was
he,
funny. Just the whole way he just kind of like flaps him into the
yeah,
distance.
he
The dude
literally does like
literally soars like Team Rockets him. Like he's out of there.
the comical like flick like away.
Yeah. It's great. It's great.
What I love that scene, but then I'm immediately disappointed by the next scene where they're beginning their assault on the Sand Kingdom, and their Munio's first target is obviously he wants to take out Lucifer and get revenge. So they go right to Demon Kingdom and basically just bomb the place. And
Yeah.
I did find it amusing that Lucifer cared so little about him that he doesn't even recognize him.
Yeah.
He's like, "Excuse me, I was doing a 3,000 piece puzzle and you just ruined it."
Yeah. I was just about to finish this puzzle, asshole. Like, but you broke my TV and then you ruined my puzzle.
Yeah, and what what pissed me off about this scene is just how easy Lucifer goes down.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
there wasn't even a fight. He just pulls out the urn, and I was like, really?
You know, I mean, let's be honest. If there was a fight, it, it, it wouldn't have been a fight.
And I know it was just such a lazy, like, up away he goes. It's like now we have to actually have the climax.
True. Well, I mean, you also got to figure like it's 7 episodes for
I
this
know,
arc, and it's very little time to work with. You kind of have to keep things moving. You can't like pad it out like you do with like Dragon Ball and stuff. So
I know. I just wish they found like some better way to explain that because I was just so like he just immediately pulls it and just like surprise, and it's like great.
mhm.
It's like what a buzzkill scene.
A big part of me kind of wishes that Sandland, like the original manga, had ended up being like it didn't have to be a long series, but I just wish that Toriyama had done more manga than just the one volume.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there was so much to be mined there. Like there was so much potential for Sandland.
Interestingly though, going forward, like we discovered that the reason why they're collecting all of the aquanium is because they're trying to revive the giant death laser thing. I forget what it's called.
It's a mini Death Star. Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah, it had some weird name. I can't remember off the top of my head.
I I literally just watched it earlier and I can't remember.
Yeah,
Um,
basically it was
Garu.
the Garu. Yeah, it was
Garu.
basically wasn't it the thing that Rao used to destroy the Peachy people?
No, well, the Peachy thing, like that was like the Peachy just happened to have Aquanium because they were trying to figure out how to make water with it, and it's just a very volatile substance. So when they fired the cannons on it, it just caused a chain reaction.
Mm.
So like that like that was like the Garu thing is supposed to be like an ancient technology. Like I don't think
Oh,
like
okay.
I don't think the current Peachy would have really. I mean, they probably have records of its existence, but I doubt that they fucked with it in a long time.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So basically, it's just a giant Death Star evil thing. Um,
Mhm.
and Rao does the classic like trope of like Do you guys seriously think you can control this?
Yeah, classic.
And then they immediately use it to go blow up an entire mountain.
Because fuck it, why not?
Well, they take out the damn resistance who weren't
Yes.
there because the swimmers saw the thing go up and they thought to warn them.
I love that the swimmers had like a bigger role in this arc, and they're just
Well,
like awesome for no
they
reason.
weren't they weren't just an annoyance this time around.
Yeah, like I'll be honest, like I love the swimmers. I think they're great.
Well, they gave them backstory too, like how like the main one was apparently he had worked with the resistance at one point.
Mm-hmm.
That was cool. Also, we got a Commander Are comes back for a minute.
Yeah, he's back for like he makes an appearance early on in the arc, but then once Garu is resurrected and they're like basically about to invade SandLand, Ra shows up and he's got all these tanks and stuff, and I love that like they gave Rao another tank, but it was the same tank. If you look at the serial number on it, it's tank 104, the same one from the previous arc. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
I also want to point out that when all of Garu's defenses kicked in and started dropping all the robots and stuff, Toriyama really went like full Star Wars because they were just dropping like spherical ATSTs.
Yep.
It was literally just ATSTs. Like
this is a little off topic, but I was actually reading the SandLand manga, and I got to the point. I got to the point where like they see the picture and Rao puts up in the tank. I didn't realize she was straight up naked in the manga.
Oh yeah.
I was like, oh, that's very different.
Yeah.
it actually makes Thief's dialogue make a lot more sense in the manga now that I think about it.
That's true.
But it's like,
have you read the whole thing, or?
I'm like halfway through it. I'll finish it at some point. It's like, I was like, that's very different from what they showed us in the show.
Oh, extremely.
Which is even sadder because that's the only photo of his wife he has left.
Yeah, right. From an old like Playboy or something. Like
yeah, like oh my. Going back though, so like they're basically planning their counterattack. I liked the fight here. Like there was a lot of cool stuff that was going on.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely feel like this was a lot more action packed than the climax of the previous arc, which isn't to detract from that because I liked what the first arc did too, but it feels like a bigger scale this time.
The first arc was a lot more about the story and the message than the actual like action.
Yeah, for sure.
This one is more straight up shonen.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the way that they get on to Garu, by the way. Like the whole like they couldn't actually like make it up because the airship that was trying to bring them up there got like shot down. And then the Genji dragon thing shows up and they pretty much use it as like a pole vaulting method.
Yeah.
It was I don't know, it was pretty wild, like the whole way that they did that.
I actually one thing I do really I thought was really interesting was we didn't mention it earlier, we should have. The way the swimmers actually helped like with the getting the plan for the counterattack like together, like the one that can draw like drew the entire drew Garth just from his sight, which was kind of cool. And it's revealed the speedy one was the one that actually went and rescued the resistance.
Yeah.
And there was a funny scene where Anne thanks him for it and he gets all embarrassed.
He gets like a little crush on her. That's part of the reason why I like the swimmers is because they all just have like their own like superpowers for no reason. It's just like, oh, this one can just draw anything with an insane detail, even if it's like outrageously far away.
That was actually a good scene. They're like, what are these blurry things on here? And he's like, oh, sorry. And he just like looks real quick and he's like, there we go.
Yeah, he just draws it in full detail. It's like, Jesus Christ, dude.
I also love the scene where they're fighting against one of like the walker things, and they can't get a shot in because it has like that one weak spot before it shoots its laser. So they send the speedy guy out to basically just fucking break the thing. And then they just get like the fucking shot and it just destroys it. It was just a cool shit.
Yeah, he's just running circles around it so fast that the thing gets confused.
Yeah, and then they just take it out like nothing.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
definitely liked all of them getting together and working together on this. It was definitely really cool. Um, so yeah, they get into the Death Star, for lack of a better term. Um,
there was a lot
and
of Star Wars vibes going on here.
it was super Star Warsy. It's like even down to like when he made the drawing of the thing and was like, oh, that's where we're gonna go in. I'm like, oh, like
I was waiting for
I,
somebody in the crowd to just go, "It's a trap."
yeah. Just somebody like, oh yeah, I used to bullseye womp rats with my T13 or whatever.
Yeah, very
But
Toriyama.
yeah, well, I mean, the first manga he ever drew for like a contest was literally just a Star Wars parody. So
True, true. Um, so the actual stuff that happens inside Gara is like insane.
there's a lot going on. It pretty much turns into like a like they kind of split up and do like have like different tasks, I guess.
Yeah, because
Um,
Beals is off to like basically take out Munio essentially. Um,
mhm,
Anne is trying to figure out a way to stop the to basically depower the station, and then Rao and Thief are trying to take out Bread.
yes, and I think Anne ends up actually helping out with both of the others situations. Like she
Well,
helps out with Bread and with Munio.
because we don't know exactly yet um what's because Anne actually has a ulterior motive here that we don't know about exactly yet. Um,
Mhm.
it doesn't get revealed later, so she's kind of acting a little suspicious, but not like in a bad way. Just in a she's up to something.
Yeah, she's got her own agenda here.
Yeah. I will say though, the way they took out Red was like one of my favorite scenes in the entire anime.
Yeah. Oh, we didn't even mention like the little gadgets that the Peachy gave them at the beginning, which are kind of important towards the end
True.
here.
We kind of
Um,
forgot about that entirely.
so they give Rao like a Joker gun, pretty much, because
Yeah.
it's a taser, but it not when it knocks them out, it makes them like giggle,
Hmm.
which is pretty silly. And they gave Beelzebub these little pills that make you levitate for like 10 seconds.
Right. Oh yeah. I forgot. I completely forgot that's where those came from.
Which when that got brought up, like when they first gave it to him, I'm like, this is going to be important to the arc in some way. I
So
didn't know how it would have happened, but I knew it was going to be important.
So, fun fact: I had watched the first like few episodes of this arc when we did our last rewatch or our last
Mhm.
like episode on this, and then I just waited till it was finished to watch the rest. I completely forgot that he had got those from there, so I thought he just pulled those out of his ass. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, oh, he just has levitation pellets. Cool.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's a peachy technology, um,
Okay, that
which
makes
came
more
out of like a
sense.
Pez dispenser, I think.
Basically, yeah. Honestly, um,
um,
yeah, the Rao fight though is really I love like how he's like, I need you to distract him so I can get my shot. And it's like, okay, and then he does the fucking Joker like gun thing, and it's like he's like, Ron, it didn't work. And he's like, don't worry, I got just enough time to shoot.
he's like, abort, abort.
And then they just blow I love how they just blow the thing up and it just face plants, and you're like, wow, that was easy.
Yep, it
But
was
then
pretty cool.
they kind of fake us out there because it cuts back after they leave to go move on to the next thing. It cuts back to a bread just like there, and it's like, oh, is there gonna be a thing? Like, is he not dead? Is he gonna come back? And they don't really elaborate on it right away.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um,
So yeah, we go to like Beelzebub and Muniel, and it was a I don't know, it was a pretty solid fight at first. Like I really like the choreography, like at the beginning of that fight when they were both just like normal.
yeah, the choreography was good. I liked what they did. I did kind of see though, I'm like, they're gonna just do the same thing that they did last time where he's gonna get mortally knocked out and then he's gonna go super um
Yeah, but I like the way they handled it this time, but like because he was limited with the amount of power of darkness he had, because he couldn't absorb it as much as he would normally.
Yeah.
So like he had that limitation to it, and it did run out at one point. Um, but yeah, they had the whole thing where he like knocked him up into the air, and he's like smashed into the aquanium, and
Yeah.
then he just like ate it.
Yeah. I was like, okay. And then he just becomes this freaking like blob monster. And I'm just like, this is wonderful.
Yeah, he keeps alternating between being like this huge bulky dude, like, and his wings grow back too, like, and he's like this big bulky like super ripped version of himself, and then he would just constantly shift between that and like this giant blob.
Basically, like failed transformation, like Go Tanks, basically.
Kind of, but like a little more disturbing
Well, yeah.
because he's like constantly like shifting, like, if that makes sense.
Yeah. There was a great scene too where like the whole time like this fight's going on and eventually like all the characters will kind of convene together during this and there's a cool scene where like Rao shows up with the tank and he's like basically like they show up and like they kind of like Beelzebub's down at this point, like he's like knocked out for the count and Munio's just taunting them and Rao has one shot left, so he just fires the shot once he realizes where he's trying to aim. It misses Munio, and Munio does nothing but gloat until he looks back and realizes he aimed directly just to expose the moon.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah, for sure. And then, Beelzebub does his thing and just absolutely destroys him.
Yeah,
which is always satisfying.
Well, there's also that great line from Munio where he's like, "Wait, the aquanium doesn't last forever."
God. Well, I mean, you know what? There's something to be said about like a message being there. It's like
True.
Like, what, you mean fossil fuels don't last forever?
I was thinking more like steroids still last forever, but
also yes.
Because he totally had roid rage going on there.
Oh, for sure. But I also think he was just drunk on power. Like I think it went beyond just regular roid rage. He was just he was on that like that kind of like god trip.
Yeah. What's funny too is like then like of course like there's a great scene where like the station's falling and Anne actually goes to the bridge and basically tells everyone they have to get out of here. This place is going to collapse, and they at first don't want to until they realize the thing is legit going down, and they all finally kind of have their face turn heel and like realize, wait a minute, what side are we even fighting for at this point?
Yeah, and whether they realize that, oh yeah, that giant explosion that fucked up SandLand 20 years or however long ago, like assholes. Yeah, that giant explosion that fucked up SandLand like 20 years ago. Yeah, that was just like a fifth of the aquanium we have on board right now. So this is gonna be bad.
Yeah, this thing is going to blow.
Yeah.
So eventually she's trying to find a way to slow its descent. And this is where Brett makes his return because there's a pipe that almost crushes her and he stops it.
Mm-hmm.
And he is essentially like, he basically realizes like what side he actually should be on.
Yeah, he's like, honestly, like I didn't actually want to use the weapon at all. I was just gonna use it as like a deterrent. Like just gonna make people say, hey, I'm not gonna fuck with that guy. So but then the angel guy just, he just started shooting everything. So yeah, I'm with you guys now.
Yeah. It was a lot of abrupt face turn heels towards the end here.
Yeah, for sure.
The scene where they're all escaping to, I did like his reasoning too, where he's like, you let the crew escape, but and stayed as your own. He's like, he kind of used that as his justification, where it was like, yeah, I can understand who the real heroes are now.
Yeah, for sure. Which is kind of where I like, get the real like, yeah, he at bottom, he had the best interests of the people at heart. He just was incredibly misguided.
I think like the term is like well-intentioned extremist or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know what they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah. Um, so eventually, that's when we get the whole flotation candies thing comes into play, and they're like, "All right, everyone, jump and take these." Um,
Yeah, it's
and
basically using it as like a makeshift parachute.
yeah, I also really like the fact that like Rao makes the comment, "All right, I'll go next," as like two other people jump right before him.
Yeah, right.
I'm glad I'm not the only one who noticed that because I was like, "Wait a minute."
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty silly. And then like
Um,
Anne kind of fakes out Beelzebub and pushes him over because she's gonna go and do what she really intended in the first place.
Yeah, I noticed the scene. What I noticed right away was the fact that Beelzebub takes his candy a lot quicker than he should have, and I was like, "Oh, I see what he's doing here."
Hmm. Yeah, but he's also a demon, so I mean, he could probably survive a fall from a higher flight than most.
Yeah, and then also we forgot to mention the just to be an extra dick, Munio eats the two fucking urns.
Yeah, but when Beelzebub kicked his ass, he spat him back up, and they ended up falling to the ground and
True.
cracking, which made it possible for Lilith and Lucifer to escape.
Yeah, I wanted to segue into that because that's part of how the climax ends, where it's like they kind of get saved by Lucifer at the end there.
Yes, so like with a combination of efforts between Lucifer's demonic power and Anne's like scientific knowledge, I guess. Uh, the explosion that would have destroyed everything ended up being not only contained, but all that energy got turned into water, like the Peachy originally wanted.
Yeah,
So it starts raining, and it's kind of how we're left off.
yeah, and I love the scene of like where Lucifer's just standing there and he's so annoyed to be not at his house.
Yeah,
Um, and I love the fact where Anne's like, "Hi, grandfather, I'm your granddaughter." He's like, "Don't ever call me that again."
it's like, oh, you mean Lord Lucifer?
And then he just doesn't give a shit and walks off.
Yeah,
Before telling Beals, he's like, "Oh yeah, nice job, bud. Do your
yeah,
homework."
attaboy. Gave Beelzebub the old attaboy.
Yeah. After telling him to do all his homework that he's been ignoring, which leads me to believe he
Mm-hmm.
goes to school.
Yeah, that makes sense. I love that like Lucifer like throughout the whole series is so like yeah whatever, but he's just like when Beelzebub first went to go on the little quest with Rao in the first place, and he's just like yeah you can go, but when you get back only 1 hour of video games a day.
Yeah, he's like
He's
just
just like
being,
he's just like a bored dad like.
yeah. His TV's gone. He needs something to do.
Mm,
And also then we get the final the final comeuppance where we find out what happened to Munio, and he's like just like planted out in the dirt in Sandland, and his wings are burned off again, which was great. Um,
yep, he's basically just
and
doing grunt work for 1,000 years.
well, like he's like there, and he's kind of knocked down. They're like, "Oh yeah, by the way, we brought someone for you," and it's like one of the I guess archangels, and he's like, "Ah,
The
Munio, I see
baby
you. I see." Yeah, he basically the guy from Yu Yu Hakusho for a minute there.
Gwenma.
Yeah, go for
Yeah.
Quenma. Um, he's like, "Ah, Munio, I see you've caused such a disaster down here. Like you're gonna have to be punished for this."
Yep. He's like, being forced to like lug a bunch of like books and stuff around, like, literally just doing like, janitor work kind of.
1,000
And he's
years
like,
of
oh,
manual labor.
he's like, God, how long do I have to do this? And they're like, hey, cheer up, man. You only have 999 days and what was that 990 years and 364 days to go.
Yeah. Also, I like the irony that the other angel, well, not the irony, but the hilarity that the other angel has his wings still, and it's like he doesn't, so he has to do everything on foot,
Hmm.
which is
Which
just
is
makes it
just
even
wonderful.
funnier. Yeah.
Hmm. He's the only angel that has to use a ladder.
Yes. Um, and then I like the how it kind of wraps everything together. Oh yeah, we never talked about the king, the Sandland King, running around in the street and tripping and falling.
Yeah, I mean, it was good for a chuckle, but not much else.
It was a slapstick moment.
I love that every
Um,
time it like goes to him, he's always just like chilling in the pool with a floaty and a bunch of like chicks in bikinis.
well, I mean, yes.
I mean, when you're the
Um,
king, I mean, you know.
you got money, you might as well. Yeah. Um, so then we get kind of cut back to the king and queen of the Forest Kingdom are back, and they're about to go do their return essentially to power. And they ask where Anne is, and Lilith is like, "Oh, she's out doing her mechanical stuff," which is kind of cool.
Yeah, she's like she was like going on like a journey to like, you know, master her skills or whatever, which I thought was pretty cool. And she's just traveling with you
Rao,
know our
the
core
gang.
group.
I like how Rao's
Um
like, "Hey, I don't mind hanging out. It's not like I'm doing much sheriffing."
yeah, it works slow right now. Everything's cool. Everyone's happy. There's rain again.
And then they get attacked by the sandworm again, and Thief's like, "Why is it always when I'm driving?"
Yeah. It's too funny. Um but yeah, that's pretty much how it ends. Oh, and Bread's reinstated as like, you know, the commander of the army. I thought like as good intentions and everything, like yeah, whatever. But he still caused a coup. He still almost caused the death of the king and did cause the entrapment of the queen. Still caused a lot of bad shit in their in their area. So like I feel like he shouldn't just be allowed to continue his post.
Uh, I mean, I guess if the king of Sandland kind of got off scot free as well. I mean,
True.
aside from half his fortune, but
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess, you know, it is Toriyama. He booted get off scot free too, even though he like literally ate 80% of the population of Earth.
Goku tries to give everyone a second chance.
Yeah, well, oh well. But yeah, that's pretty much where the story ends. And like, honestly, like, I mean, I know you probably don't have exactly the same kind of attachment, but like when I finished the series for the second time, watching it through, like, I kind of got a little emotional at the end because like this is like one of the, with the exception of Daima coming up, like this is like the last original thing that Toriyama worked on.
Yeah, honestly.
Like this arc was like one of the very last things that he did, and I kind of got a little emotional at the end when I watched it, thinking about that.
Yeah, honestly, like, I mean, it. As much as I have problems with the second arc, I did enjoy Sandland all the way through.
Mhm.
I mean, the first arc is like borderline perfect in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. Like that, like having that as a movie, and I really wish we just got the movie version. Then like I'm okay with having the series too, but like I would like to have the movie too. Um, but like I feel like that works perfectly just as a movie. Like,
Yeah, it was honestly just kind of one of those things where it was kind of like it didn't need to be a series, but I get why they did it. I mean, I still say like the CGI animation looked really good. There were points a lot of the times I kept forgetting it was CGI to begin with.
mhm.
Um, Voice acting was really good. Surprising considering it wasn't Crunchyroll; it was an outside studio. And it was pretty
Yeah,
much
for
all
sure.
it was pretty much all unknowns.
Yeah, I think it was a lot. Wasn't it like a lot of them were video game actors, weren't they?
Yeah, well, because it's all the same cast from the video game.
Hmm. Well, I mean, it's one of those like chicken or the egg things. Like, who was cast for what first? I don't know.
Yeah. Um,
Um, but at the end, like, I was really just kind of like, I don't know, 13 episodes. Like, it's a solid 13 episode series. It's quick, it's short, it's to the point, it's tight. But like I kind of wish there was more. Honestly, like it kind of makes me a little bit more excited to dive into the game. Like, hopefully
yeah.
that like fleshes things out a little bit more, like
From
kind of
what
expands the world. But
Chris over at Novel Console says, it's almost like perfect recreation.
mhm.
So I'm looking forward to
um,
trying that eventually when I get around to it.
it, I still have only played like a couple hours of the game, but I will say I think it's interesting that that Anne is introduced at the beginning of the first arc.
Yeah, that's a different change.
Yeah, so I'm interested to see like what kind of changes happen with the story with these other characters being thrown in the mix. And yeah, I'm not 100% sure. I think you only play like consistently as Beelzebub. There was like one like stealth quest that you played as Thief in the part that I played. I don't know if you're gonna get chances to play as Rao or Anne at any points, but I mean it would be cool.
Hmm.
Although I guess
Yeah,
it does make sense for Anne to be there because she is like the mechanic. So when you got
true,
all these tanks, the tanks and the walker bots and all this other stuff that you need to upgrade and stuff, so it makes sense to have the mechanic early on.
true.
Um, but once I actually crack down and play through the whole game, maybe we'll have to do an episode on that. Have
Yeah,
a nice round out to the Sandland little mini series that we've been doing.
I'll have to get that at some point too. I just money's been I've been trying to take care of other things at the moment.
Understandable. I'm kind of
But
right with you, honestly.
yeah. But yeah, I mean I enjoyed the ride, I'll say.
Mhm.
And I'm curious what's next to come in the Toriyama world. Um
Yeah.
Daima's the next thing, and I'm curious. I'm still a little hesitant on it, but I'm curious to see how it turns out.
I think it'll be great, honestly. I think I'm a little bit less enthusiastic about it now that Toriyama has passed, because I know that I'm sure he has like stuff that he's already set in place beforehand, but there's going to come a point where they're going to have to start coming up with stuff on their own, depending on how long it's going to be.
Yeah.
So that does worry me, but I have I'm confident that it'll at least have a strong start,
Hmm.
if nothing else.
Yeah.
Um, and who knows, maybe one day in the near future we'll finally get a dub for Dr. Slump. I would love that.
Yeah. That'd be nice.
I mean, I think at this point we've established that when you got the right people working on the translations and stuff, you can make Japanese humor work in America. I think we established that that's
I mean,
perfectly
th-
doable.
they made Azumanga Daioh work back in like the early 2000s. They should be able to make anything work.
Yeah. But I think Harmony Gold did one episode, like did like the pilot episode, and then never went any further than that.
Sounds like Harmony Gold.
But I remember I watched it like forever ago, and I really wish that there had been more. But what are you gonna do? Hopefully, let's hope.
Yeah. But yeah, other than that, not much else. I guess now we can probably announce. It's been announced on other shows, but we're now officially a partner with the Superpod Network, which is a podcasting network put together by our friend Aaron over at Superpod Saga. Um, so yeah, all of our episodes are going to be featured on that website. I'll have the link in the description of all of our future podcasts going forward. So be sure to check that
Very
out, everybody.
exciting.
Yeah,
Very exciting.
I've worked with Aaron for God like 2 years now, and I'm looking forward to doing more stuff in the future.
Awesome.
But yeah, anything else before we sign out, or
No, I think that pretty much covers it for today.
all right? So, anyways, guys, once again, thanks for joining us on the Geek Addicts. You can find Geek Addicts in all your major podcasting platforms, particularly Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can also find our episodes on YouTube with video and audio versions, and you can find all of our links at Linktree/The Barber Who Games, or you can join the GNC Podcast Network Discord server to find all things GNC, 3DO, Geek Addicts, Talk Gaming, Anime, or just general nonsense over there. And with that, everybody, we will see you all later.
Have a good one.
And this is where the car just goes. Good night, everybody.